When I pulled Christina Martinez from her burning car on Interstate 80 and disappeared before help arrived, I thought it was just another good deed that would go unnoticed. I had no idea her father was a retired Navy admiral or that he would deploy military drones to track me down across 4 states. What happened when they found me would prove that sometimes the right thing to do leads to rewards beyond imagination. Hi everyone, welcome to Life's Changing Stories. Now let's dive into today's stories. The Colorado plains stretched endlessly ahead as Marcus "Mac" Donovan, who gripped the steering wheel of his weathered 2009 Ford F-250. Its white paint faded to the color of old bones after 14 years of hard use. The truck's odometer had rolled over 247,000 miles, each one earned hauling plumbing tools and supplies across Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and New Mexico. At 52 years old, Mac had been an independent plumbing contractor for over 2 decades, taking jobs wherever the work was steady and the pay was fair. Interstate 80 west of Denver was Mac's least favorite stretch of highway, flat, monotonous, and prone to sudden weather changes that could transform driving conditions from clear to treacherous in minutes. Today's job had taken him to Sacramento to install emergency plumbing systems in a new hospital complex, and now he was heading home to his small apartment in Colorado Springs, calculating whether this week's earnings would cover both rent and truck repairs that couldn't be postponed much longer. The CB radio mounted beneath his dashboard crackled with occasional chatter from other long-haul drivers, but Mac mostly listened to classic rock stations when he could find them, preferring the steady rhythm of music to help pass the endless miles. His toolbox rattled in the truck bed with every bump, a familiar sound that had become the soundtrack to his solitary work life. He'd grown accustomed to the isolation of highway driving, using the time to think about his next job, plan his routes, and wonder if he'd ever find a way to stop chasing work across 4 states. At 2:30 p.m. on a clear Tuesday afternoon in March, Mac was making good time toward Denver when traffic suddenly slowed, then stopped completely. Through his windshield, he could see smoke rising from somewhere ahead, the dark column visible against the bright blue Colorado sky. Other drivers were getting out of their vehicles to see what was happening, but Mac stayed in his truck, figuring whatever was blocking traffic would clear eventually. He'd learned patience during his years on the road. Sometimes the best thing to do was wait and let the professionals handle whatever emergency had developed. Marcus "Mac" Donovan was 52 years old and more practical than the Colorado mountains that surrounded his home state. Every morning, despite his aging truck and the uncertain nature of independent contracting work, he'd load his tools and head toward whatever plumbing emergency needed his attention. Mac had been working with his hands since he was 16, learning the trade from his father before starting his own business after a brief stint in the Army that ended when his back was injured during training. Mac believed in simple principles: show up on time, do the work right, charge a fair price, and help people when they needed it. He'd built a modest reputation among contractors and homeowners across the region, earning referrals through honest work rather than flashy advertising or competitive pricing. His business card was plain white with black text, and his truck carried no fancy lettering, just his name and phone number painted on the doors in simple block letters. The 2009 Ford F-250 had been purchased used 5 years earlier when his previous truck finally died outside of Salt Lake City. Mac had paid cash for it, choosing reliability over appearance, and had maintained it meticulously despite the high mileage. The truck carried everything he needed for most plumbing jobs: pipe cutters, wrenches, soldering equipment, a portable acetylene torch, and enough spare parts to handle common repairs without multiple trips to supply stores. Mac's typical week involved driving 200 to 100 miles between jobs, staying in budget motels, and eating at truck stops while moving from one project to the next. He'd considered settling down with a larger company that could provide steady local work, but Mac valued his independence and the variety that came with serving different communities across the American West. The accident scene that would change Mac's life began with a silver 2020 Honda Pilot that had blown a front tire while traveling westbound at highway speed. The driver, 34-year-old Christina Martinez, was returning to Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs after a defense contracting conference in Sacramento when her vehicle lost control, flipped twice, and slid down a steep embankment beside the interstate. Mac could see the wreckage from his position in the traffic jam. The SUV had landed on its roof, and smoke was beginning to rise from the engine compartment. Other drivers stood at the guardrail taking photos and calling 911, but nobody was moving toward the accident scene. Mac grabbed his work gloves from the dashboard and jogged past the stopped cars, his boots crunching on gravel as he scrambled down the embankment. The Honda was worse than it had appeared from the road. The roof was partially crushed, all windows were shattered, and gasoline was pooling beneath the vehicle from a ruptured fuel tank. Mac could smell the distinctive odor of spilled fuel mixed with hot metal and knew he had very little time before the situation became much more dangerous. Through the driver's side window opening, Mac could see an unconscious woman slumped forward against her seatbelt. She appeared to be in her 30s, wearing a navy blue business suit, with dark hair that had fallen across her face. Blood from a head wound had stained her collar, but she was breathing steadily. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Mac called through the window, but received no response. The driver's door was jammed shut, twisted from the impact, but the window frame was clear enough for Mac to reach through. Using his jacket to sweep away remaining glass fragments, he carefully maneuvered his upper body through the opening to reach the woman's seatbelt release. Mac could hear the distinctive crackle of flames beginning somewhere behind him as he worked to free the unconscious woman. The acrid smell of burning plastic mixed with gasoline fumes, creating a toxic combination that made his eyes water. Working as quickly as possible while trying not to cause additional injuries, Mac supported the woman's weight as he guided her through the window opening. Once clear of the vehicle, Mac carried her approximately 50 feet up the embankment, far enough from the wreckage to be safe when the inevitable explosion occurred. He checked her pulse, steady but weak, and examined her injuries, noting cuts and bruises, but nothing that appeared life-threatening. In the distance, Mac could hear sirens approaching. Fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars were responding to the multiple 911 calls from other motorists. As the woman began to stir, showing signs of regaining consciousness, Mac quietly walked back to his truck and continued his journey toward Colorado Springs. Mac had no interest in being interviewed by reporters, questioned by police about his heroic actions, or having his picture taken for newspaper articles. He'd done what anyone should do in similar circumstances, and the approaching emergency responders were better equipped to handle the medical aspects of the situation. What Mac didn't know was that Christina Martinez was a civilian defense contractor specializing in logistics coordination for Peterson Space Force Base. As paramedics loaded her into the ambulance, Christina asked repeatedly about the man who had pulled her from the burning vehicle, but the first responders reported they hadn't seen anyone matching her description. Several witnesses provided police with detailed accounts of Mac's rescue effort. A truck driver who had been first on the scene described a middle-aged guy in work clothes who didn't hesitate to risk his life. A family traveling in a minivan told officers about watching the man drag Christina to safety just before flames engulfed the Honda's interior. A business traveler had even attempted to photograph the rescue, though smoke obscured most details. Police pieced together a description. A middle-aged man driving an older white pickup truck, probably a contractor or tradesman based on his clothes and the tools visible in his truck bed. Despite having this information, locating one pickup truck among thousands traveling Interstate 80 seemed nearly impossible. From her hospital bed that evening, Christina called her father, retired Admiral Roberto Martinez. Admiral Martinez had served 32 years in the Navy, including command of carrier battle groups and oversight of naval aviation programs. When Christina described her rescue and the mystery surrounding her rescuer's identity, Admiral Martinez understood immediately that this type of person, someone who acts without expecting recognition, deserved proper acknowledgement. Finding someone on the interstate system without better resources is like searching for a needle in a haystack, Admiral Martinez told his daughter. But that doesn't mean we can't try. The next morning, Admiral Martinez called Colonel Sarah Patterson at Peterson Space Force Base. Despite being retired, Admiral Martinez maintained significant influence within military circles, and his request for assistance received serious consideration. "Sarah, I need a favor," Admiral Martinez explained. "My daughter was saved by someone who deserves our thanks, not anonymity. We're looking for an older white pickup truck, probably heading east from the accident site, driven by a middle-aged male who works construction or trades and moved like someone who knew what he was doing in an emergency." Colonel Patterson found the request unusual but agreed to help. Peterson Space Force Base regularly conducted training flights with high-altitude reconnaissance drones, and adding a secondary observation mission wouldn't interfere with primary operations. "If we find him," Colonel Patterson assured Admiral Martinez, "we'll thank him properly." Captain Lisa Rodriguez was piloting an RQ-4 Global Hawk reconnaissance drone on a routine training mission when she received the unusual secondary assignment. Flying at 60,000 feet over eastern Colorado, Captain Rodriguez had access to high-resolution cameras capable of identifying individual vehicles from extreme altitude. At 3:15 p.m., approximately 48 hours after the accident, Captain Rodriguez spotted an older white pickup truck matching the description parked outside a budget motel in Limon, Colorado. Enhanced imaging confirmed it was a Ford F-250 with Colorado plates, showing significant wear consistent with commercial use. The truck's toolbox and equipment were visible in the bed, and surveillance confirmed a single occupant entering room 23. "Base, this is Falcon 1, Captain Rodriguez radioed. I have a possible match on our secondary target. White Ford pickup, Colorado registration, single male occupant, tools and equipment consistent with trade work. Copy that, Falcon 1. Maintain observation and report any movement." Mac was settling into his motel room, planning to grab a shower and drive the remaining hour to Colorado Springs, when he noticed two black SUVs with government plates parking directly outside his door. Through the window, he could see people in military uniforms stepping out of the vehicles. Colonel Patterson, wearing her Space Force uniform, knocked firmly on Mac's door. When he opened it, she introduced herself professionally. "Mr. Donovan, I'm Colonel Sarah Patterson with the United States Space Force. We've been looking for you." Mac's immediate instinct was to look toward the back window, calculating whether he could slip out unnoticed. "I think you've got the wrong person, Colonel. You pulled a woman from a burning vehicle on Interstate 80 2 days ago," Colonel Patterson continued. "The woman you saved was Christina Martinez, daughter of retired Admiral Roberto Martinez. He's very eager to meet you." Behind Colonel Patterson stood James Wilson from the base's Civilian Contractor Liaison Office and Staff Sergeant Michael Torres. Mac realized that whatever was happening was both official and serious. "Mr. Donovan, we have a proposition for you," Wilson explained. "Based on your background check and Admiral Martinez's recommendation, we'd like to offer you steady contract work, maintaining plumbing and mechanical systems at Peterson Space Force Base. It's closer to your home base than traveling across 4 states, and it comes with federal contractor benefits. Staff Sergeant Torres stepped forward with a set of keys. There's also this, he said, gesturing toward a pristine black 2019 Ram 1500 parked behind the government SUVs. Low mileage, excellent condition, fully maintained by military mechanics. It was primarily used for base transportation. Max stared at the truck, then at the keys, then at the assembled military personnel. You found me with a spy plane, didn't you? Colonel Patterson smiled. High-altitude reconnaissance drone, actually. We prefer the term unmanned aerial system. This is about a father whose daughter came home alive because of your actions, Staff Sergeant Torres explained. When someone risks their life for family, you do something meaningful in return. Colonel Patterson mentioned that Admiral Martinez wanted to present Mac with a civilian recognition award at a ceremony the following month, acknowledging his courage and selfless actions. Mac expressed immediate discomfort with ceremonies, crowds, and public recognition. The Admiral anticipated that reaction, Colonel Patterson said. Your actions speak louder than any speech. The ceremony will honor several civilian heroes, so you wouldn't be the center of attention. But we understand if you prefer to decline. Mac politely declined the ceremony, which Colonel Patterson and Admiral Martinez completely understood. It doesn't change our gratitude or respect, she assured him. Wilson handed Mac the truck keys. This is yours whether you take the job or not, he explained. A thank you from one American to another. After inspecting the immaculate Ram 1500 and finding a handwritten note from Admiral Martinez expressing deep gratitude for saving his daughter's life, Mac was overwhelmed by the generosity. He called his dispatcher that evening and accepted the position at Peterson Space Force Base. 3 months later, while working on heating system upgrades in the base's administration building, Mac was approached by Christina Martinez. She had a fading scar on her forehead from the accident, but otherwise appeared completely recovered. Mr. Donovan, I've been hoping to run into you, Christina said. I wanted to thank you personally. I'm completely fine thanks to you. Anyone would have done the same thing, Mac replied, uncomfortable with the attention. That's not true, and we both know it, Christina responded. What you did wasn't just heroic, it was human. In a world where people drive past problems, you stopped and helped. That matters more than you know. Christina explained that Mac's actions had reminded her father why he'd spent 32 years in naval service, to protect people like Mac who make the country worth defending. He says people who act without expecting recognition are the backbone of everything we're trying to preserve. Mac found quiet satisfaction in his new role, believing that the private knowledge of saving a life was worth more than any public award. 6 months after the accident, he received a Christmas card from Christina Martinez containing a photo from her wedding, thanking him for making sure her father had the chance to walk her down the aisle. Colonel Patterson sent a follow-up note stating that Mac's story had inspired the military to recognize other civilian heroes. Doing the right thing creates ripples we never see, she wrote. Mac discovered his place in the quiet satisfaction of steady work and the knowledge that he'd made a difference when it mattered most. The Black Ram 1500 served as a daily reminder that doing the right thing had its own rewards, even when those rewards came from unexpected directions. His new position provided financial security, excellent benefits, and work that utilized his skills without requiring constant travel across multiple states. Most importantly, Mac had learned that character was measured not just by how you acted when nobody was watching, but also by how gracefully you accepted gratitude when everyone was paying attention. The transformation from struggling independent contractor to valued federal employee had happened because Mac chose to help someone in need without expecting anything in return. Admiral Martinez had been right about one thing. People who risk their lives for strangers deserve recognition, whether they want it or not, and sometimes the best rewards come from sources you never could have imagined. We hope you enjoyed today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.